Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Discovery Hub podcast. I am here with my co-host, Anahit Cassels, and today we are so excited to have the amazing Max Trombly on our episode today. Max, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and what a perfect day. It's bright and sunny out. Life is good.
So, Max, tell us a little bit about yourself, just like briefly, and then we're really excited about the topic today of the unmet needs, but I'm going to have you kind of take lead on that.
Okay, well, my name is Max Trombly. I am a husband and a father down in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been a men's work facilitator for a decade. I've been working with men for a long time. I'm also a life, love, and relationships coach, and I've been working with men, women, and couples in that realm for about 4 years. A lot of this work it was really inspired by my own life a decade ago, and it just kind of grew from there. And then I was inspired by the field of the work. Like, what are other people going through? What are they experiencing? And that was my path, and a decade later, I'm living it. I'm living as a coach, as a leader of people and facilitator of healing work, and as a father and as a husband. That's my deal.
You're very inspiring, and, listening to you talk and watching your posts and your reels and everything, it really gives such perspective and such hope for what we can have in relationships. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, wow, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm just trying to put out things that I find to be helpful. We're all human beings having a human experience of love and life and all the challenges. And as I navigate my own experience, but also as I help others, hundreds of men across a decade and quite a few men and women in my coaching practice, I just look at what are the commonalities among all people that we all struggle with. And then I share it from a lens that is somewhat easy to digest and logical so that people can go, okay, well, that makes sense. And then, I get a lot of feedback that even just from my online transmission, people are able to shift, their frame of understanding around what seems to be complex therapeutic topics, but they're not always that complex. And there's different ways to work with them. And so, yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to figure out how to become, a functional channel of information on the internet sphere over the past year, after doing this for a long time in private. So here I am.
Also, Max, I wanted to ask you, because it seems like, and this is really great for our listeners and people to try to find you, et cetera, and even cross referrals, is, I think what kind of is very grabbing from your videos and a lot of the work you do is you specialize with men. So you really understand men. And I think that's what we want to really talk about today, because, in general, men have unique needs, women have their needs, and we're so excited to start on this topic. So let's just jump right into it on the unmet needs. We were talking about that topic together, and we love that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since the beginning of human history, needs, wants, and desires aren't exactly the big priority. It's survival, right? And we've been talking, when you actually look at human history, we only got out of the survival orientation over the past couple hundred years. I mean, there's been oscillation in and out of it for 2,000 years or so, 4,000. I don't want to get into the history of this, but let me just be really clear. Humans across the entire span of human history have been mostly oriented with, are we okay? Mm-hmm. That's like a baseline. Are we okay? Are we safe? Is my husband safe? Is our job safe? Is the place we live safe? That's posturing around safety and security has been kind of the history of mankind. Really, over the past couple hundred years, and really, it seems to be, there's this new renaissance around understanding needs and love and desires, really since the 1950s and 60s. And so why I'm framing it this way is because when someone says, why are we culturally unmet in our needs? It's because, well, having our needs met is a relatively new idea, and most people still don't even realize you can do that. Mm-hmm. Most people haven't even tapped into the game of, what are my needs? What are my actual needs? And beyond needs, what are my desires? What do I really want out of life? That's all new, and the ability to grab onto that's a relatively new concept. And so, if you look at cultural movements like feminism, for example, that was a big cultural awakening, like women going, what do we want? What do we need? We need equality. We want, the right to our bodies, autonomy. That's kind of a big moment of the reclamation of needs for the feminine. Well, men haven't really done that. Men haven't said, well, what do we need? Men have sort of been in this position for a long time where we just showed up and did our best, and often it wasn't good enough, and sometimes it was toxic. And that's the whole spectrum of masculinity for hundreds of thousands of years. Great men, mediocre men, toxic men. That's what the truth is. That's what we got. And so, in terms of needs, forget about it. It's all performance oriented, truly. And so even to this day, men grow up in a performance oriented way of understanding their own masculinity or their own way of life. And often they don't have good model. They're like, there's no good modeling. Their dads didn't do well, or there was addiction or other problems. And so men are just sort of going, how do I even figure out life? And needs, wants, and desires. I mean, most people don't even ask these questions. So, when we look at it from that lens, then the question would be, okay, so how do we work with it? And I think the thing to start, we have to look at what are some foundational needs, and then what are the foundational desires, and split them off into two categories. A basic need for most people is safety, security. And so, for women, that means being surrounded by people that are emotionally safe, as well as financial safety and security. For men, it's more just about like, do I have a house? Do I have the things I need to feel like I can create in the world? Those are some base level needs. But wants and desires, that's where I think it gets really interesting. Like, what we really inherently want is, we want to be loved. We want to be lit up. We want to be seen. We want to be validated. We want to have great sex, love, intimacy, like all of the goodness of that. Then beyond that, welcome to, the modern era. We want to travel and see the world. That's something that's still, again, relatively new. And, these are things that most people aren't sure how to create a pathway toward them. Getting your needs met and fulfilling your desires. And so that's where we are. That's why I think my work is successful, because I'm helping people understand, even within their own situation, whatever it might be, whether they're really successful in life or in a small rural area in the world. The way I talk about these things, seems to be really helpful. Does that make sense?
Max,
yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and I had a question for you. You had a video, and I think this would be really helpful to our listeners as well, is since you specialize in dating and coaching and men and women, et cetera, in relationships, is when people kind of go off, and Anahit and I also work with couples and relationships, premarital, et cetera. When you're going, I think we're in a really different generation and time right now, right? When we talk about the dating world. And when you're going from, you had a video about, I went on 19 dates before I met my wife, and on the 20th. And I love what you said there, because it was all about, what is it that I want? Again, we're going back to wants and needs, and you as a man knowing what you want, right? And so if we're talking to our listeners who are going through the talking stage, and from the talking stage, they're going into the dating phase, and from the dating phase, now they're in that relationship phase. And in all these three phases, we have wants and needs. And I'd really love for you to speak to that, because that kind of takes us to where we're at today in terms of building, right, and creating. Because I think you talk about building and creating.
I do, yeah. I mean, I'm really a big proponent of co-creating in relationships. So my wife and I, we build our relationship together from a place of well, I'll get into that second. Let me answer your question. So this idea of needs in dating, if we don't know what we're trying to do with our lives, if we don't know what we want our life to look like in 10 years, then we're dating blindly, and we're dating cheaply. We're dating on chemistry, but chemistry is cheap. You can be attracted to quite a few people that aren't actually aligned with your deeper desires for life. And so the first thing I say to anyone that's asking about dating is, what do you want to be living? Like, what is the life you want to be living in 5 years, 10 years? Do you want kids? If you already have kids, do you need a co-parent? What are you really needing? And what I find is that most people then, when I ask them that question, they kind of go, I've never really thought about that before. And it's like, well, why aren't we thinking about that? The most powerful thing that I did is, so I divorced my ex-wife when I was like 35, I guess. And then at 36, I did some healing. And then, as I was moving in 34, 35, 36, this whole area, as I was moving toward dating, I went, okay, how do I set myself up to be he who can magnetize and create a beautiful relationship? Like, I'm looking for a woman to be the mother of my children, to be an incredible love, a passionate partner in life. how do I co-create that? Who do I have to become? So before I even started dating, I kind of reclaimed joy and the ability for me to just be a yes to life. And then from that place, I dated with this thing of, I'm looking for very specific parameters in my partner, someone that's ready to be a mom or already has a kid and wants to have more kids. And, what happened was, as I was dating through, 19 people. It wasn't just 19 dates. I dated 19 people. And it was pretty wild. 4 of them I dated for more than one date. What I did is I just asked some basic questions, like, what are you looking for in a relationship? And the answers to that question alone negated like half of them. Because they were like, I don't really know. I'm just here. And I was like, okay, your lack of consciousness around relationships says a lot. Cool. You're great. I'm moving on. I didn't say it that way. I was really kind and compassionate in the dating method. Like, how I dated was like, how do I have the softest possibility of no when I tell people like, no, this isn't working for me. But what I'm telling you is I was clear, and does this make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I work with people on dating, I go, well, what is the life you're really here to live? And what a lot of people, this is what I find. What I find is that a lot of people have no idea and they're confused because they've been following all these social media accounts where they're like, well, I want to live a life like that. And it's like, well, that person doesn't have kids, or that person doesn't even have a relationship. Like, what are you actually trying? It's like, when I work with people, what I have to tease out is like, what if we put aside this idea that you're going to travel every 2 weeks to Greece and Bali? Like, what if we go like, what are you actually here to do? And what I find is most people are like, yeah, well, I really want to have kids. I want to create a family. Like, I want to find a partner I can do that with. And I'm like, okay, so stop focusing on traveling the world. Focus on finding a good partner. Focus on creating a family. And if that's the focus, what do we actually need to look for in a partner? You don't want to find a partner that doesn't want to settle, who just wants to travel the world. You actually want the opposite. So do you see how, like, really quickly what I find when I'm talking to people about dating is their desires for life are in opposition to each other, and they're preventing them from actually surrendering into the path they're here to create. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So sorting that out. Go ahead.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking about, so now we've come to a place that we've become clear on what we want.
Sure.
And we attract the person that we think is the one for us, and we start building. You talk a lot about how to keep it moving and how to keep it alive and beautiful, and how to keep nourishing that beautiful relationship. I'd love to talk a little bit about that, because it's beautiful to find the right person, but it's also extremely beautiful to keep that beauty alive and that love alive and flourishing and passionate and giving and coming from a space of giving versus always taking.
Yeah. Totally. So to have a really exquisite, exceptional relationship, it's all about the intersection of compelling vision and energy. Compelling vision would be me sitting down with my wife at the beginning of our relationship or at any point in our relationship and saying, what are we doing with this relationship? Where are we going? What are we creating? What do you want? Like, when we do that, we can both go, well, I want more of this. I want more of that. Great. And then we get to creating it. We get to showing up and creating it. So that compelling vision piece, that's important because, hey, what do you want? And here's what I want. Putting those things on the table and then creating more of it, that's the solid start. Energy is the second part of that. For me to have a really lit up relationship, like I've got to be alive. I'm going to be like, baby, I love you. I'm so excited for this weekend. I'm excited to see you tonight. Like, that's energy. Flirtation is one version of it. Like, when we talk about flirtation, what that is using energy to evoke or provoke a response in the other person. Okay, great. But what if it's beyond flirtation? What if it's just about like, yes, life. Yes, we can. Yes, we've got this. Yes, I've got you. How do we hold our partners in moments? All of that. That's
God,
part
I
of
love that too much. I love that too much.
Yeah. And it's showing. And it's showing, right? It's showing up every day for that person. Even though when we're married, we're not complacent. We're not, we're showing that person that we love them, even though we continue dating. We hear this a lot too from dating coaches and relationship coaches. It's about nourishing that relationship on a daily basis, even when life gets hard and life gets stressful. And kids are in the mix and life is in the mix and work is in the mix, and really finding that healthy balance where we are there and we see each other and we see one another. And I think this is where people get stuck. And I see this a lot too in my practice, that people get stuck in that space where we become complacent and we forget about our partner. Totally. I tell a lot of couples and parents I work with, and I don't know what your take is on this, but here's what I say. So when your partner walks in through that door every day, he should be the first person, or he should come to you as the first person that he kisses and not the children. Why? Because you are primal in that relationship. Without you, there is no kids. There is no, balance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I really agree with you. And it's almost like radical to say this, but like, the world needs to foster better relationships, and we need to stop giving into the victim thing where it's like, I don't know what to do in this relationship. It's like, no, we're all individually empowered and responsible to create it. So when you say giving your husband a kiss when he walks in the door first, that's you taking responsibility over the condition and quality of your relationship. 100%. I'm a big self-responsibility person. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is something that you were saying, I want to point this out. Showing up every day doesn't just mean, because when I tell that to people, often people will say like, well, what about on the days that I don't have the energy? It's like, well, you can still show up without energy. And so this is where we actually fail, because most people don't have the energy to show up enthusiastically every day. And so then when they miss it, they make a story that they can't, and then they stop doing it altogether. So what I want to put in this conversation that's really important is showing up every day means either I'm here, let's do it, or it means I'm here, I'm exhausted, I'm having a hard day, I need to tap out for the evening, but I'm with you and we can do this tomorrow. Like that's another way of being I'm here. And so all in on relationship means all in wherever you're at. I'm here, I love you, I've got this. Or I'm here, I'm completely lost in stress right now. Can we try to like come back together this weekend? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear authenticity in here.
Yeah, totally.
So being your authentic self is showing up every time as your real person.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm real when I have a migraine headache.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm real when I feel sexy. I'm real when the world sucks and my kids have driven me up a wall.
Yeah.
I'm real. That's me.
Oh, 100%.
And so, and at the other end of it, when your partner is able to accept the real you, it doesn't have to be the beautiful, oh, perfect, oh my God, I'm wearing this and I'm doing this. It's the real me. And if someone can accept that real me, and you show up as that person every day, then I think there's a really good place to build something really beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. And going one step further, checking ourselves so that our authentic expression is not depressed and anxious to the point that we can't contribute to the relationship, right?
Exactly.
So there is this balance. Like, you know, I'm building a really powerful company right now, and it's expanding, and I've hired some people, and so I'm really in the weeds of my company and stress. And I have to recognize that she's going to hold all of that stress if I can't hold it, own it, and just let her know. So, you know, when my wife's on the way home from work or whatever, I might say like, hey baby, just, you know, I'm having like a really stressful day and I could use an hour. Like once you get home, can we like just kind of have like a low key evening? And that's me being all in with the truth that I need a sensitive, like, does this make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's you sharing, right? How you're feeling in that moment versus internalizing. Yeah.
However, if I don't share it, and if I'm just a stress ball and she gets home and that's just my authentic truth, what I'm actually doing is I'm creating a really difficult environment for my wife, because she doesn't know what's going on. And she's like, wow, where's Max? Like he's like disconnected or avoidant or whatever. Like, so the thing is showing up authentically, but also having self-responsibility over what our authentic transmission of energy is. Like, you know, because a lot of people are just like, take me for who I am. It's like, well, you're like a horrible energetic every day. Like you're depressed, you're angry, you're upset. Like that, take some responsibility over that so that you can show up as something that's productive. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's huge and very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important, especially for men. You know, men, why is my relationship not working? It's like, well, how do you show up every day, Monday through Friday? Like really? Like do you get home from work and like grab a beer and then like put on the TV and completely check out while she's like, hey, I want to share something with you. Like, where are you? You know? And that's people just have to understand that there's impact to energy. The co-creating relationship piece, this is a huge piece that I see. At the beginning, we have all these dreams and desires from relationships. Well, if I don't honor her dreams and desires, she's going to get like resentful. And after resentment, she's going to have contempt. If I don't live out the things that we talked about, you know, one of the things my wife and I talked about is creating a family, taking our kids on trips, like doing cool things, you know, as a family. And I really have to stay in that game of that's what I promised. That's what I'm committed to. And I mean, we can change, but like checking in on relationship vision matters, you know, yearly or bi-yearly or twice, whatever. Like where are we? Where are you? What do you want? What do you want more of? What are we doing? And that's how we really stay in the game of co-creating a really powerful relationship.
Yeah. And that's also, even as a man, it's, and even women as well. It's not just men, but I feel like it's really tuning in and tapping into that space. Like, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm not in a good place, I'm whatever it is I'm going through, that I'm able to communicate that to my partner. And it's not just to my partner, but it's also communicating it if I'm communicating to a friend or someone.
Totally.
And just being really open about that and and letting that energy flow.
Yeah. I think it's important. Honesty is important. And also, we're not victims of our own energy. We can shift it. We can change it. We can, move our bodies in ways that make us feel good, and we can create from it. So it's all there. It's all available.
So a lot of times with the couples that I see and people I work with, you see when things get really stressful, people forget their coping strategies, and they right away go back to armoring up and going in their trenches.
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about how do we, once you're in your trench, now it's warfare.
Yeah.
So how do we recognize and stop ourselves from going into the trench? Because the trench is already all out. We're all ready to go. We're all,
the best.
blazing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we talk a lot about how to stop ourselves right at the place that we start armoring up.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your perspective about that. As a man and a man who's worked with many men, and you're working in this field, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. This is a great question. So I work it from the back. And what I mean by that is this: if I have a couple that has a really horrible coping strategy, or like if their conflict habits are just difficult, it's almost impossible to get them to start doing something different while they're in the ramp up toward those emotional conflicts. However, so what I start with is really conscious repair. So they're going to get into a conflict, and then I teach how to repair it. And I have them practice the repair over and over as they go through these conflicts. And what I find happens is that the time from conflict to repair goes from a couple days to a day to a couple hours to even 20 minutes later. And eventually what happens is this repair piece starts to insert itself in the actual act of the expression of conflict, where this is what happened to me, and this is what I teach, and it works. My wife and I'll be in a situation, and I'll be like enraged, right? Mad. I'm like angry that she has this perspective and has this belief about me. And I'm like, no, it's not true at all. Like, I'm going into like, she's wrong. But I also go, if I go that direction, we're just going to get an all out fight. And I know I'm going to repair it in 20 minutes. So like, why don't I just go straight to that? Listen, what do you want me to hear? Like we've been in conflicts. I remember, saying to my wife, like, I'm like enraged at what's going on right now in this conflict, but I just want to get right to like, how do we resolve it? So what do you need me to hear? And then I've bypassed the explosion and the conflict, and I've gone right to repair. And then we actually have that's the habit interrupt. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So your key word, Max, and I love that, is, what do you want me to hear?
Yeah, totally.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Some people may not know how to respond to that. I love that. It's, what do you want me to hear? That's about you stepping into your awareness right there, which a lot of people can't do when they are enraged.
Yeah. Right? Well, it takes time. It takes practice. And the thing is, that's why I'm training it in the repair. Like, whenever they can repair, let's practice. Do you know imago dialogue? Like that really simple. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The imago dialogue is basically like, okay, what's your charge? And then it's like, cool, I'm mirroring your charge. So I teach this very simple version of the imago dialogue. And then I say, use this to start your repair conversations. And eventually that is what kind of makes it like into the moment of conflict when I'm working with couples. And, so it might just be like, wow, we're really making a mess right now, and we're totally at each other's throats. But I just like, what's the thing you want me to hear? So I can just tell you that I'm hearing you. That's the first part of the imago dialogue. And it's really, how do we repair? We start listening. We start paying attention. So it's the easiest way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And what do you need from me? It also sounds like a different version of what is it that you need from me? Just like we tell our kids when we're upset or we have a conflict. What is it that you need me to change, right?
Yeah.
What is it that I'm doing that's hurting your feelings? Or what is it that I need to do to change? Because we all have a different perspective on shift and change, right?
Yeah, totally.
So if that means you didn't communicate or you didn't let me know about something or you didn't text at an appropriate time, whatever it is, I'm letting you know what I need. Or you didn't vacuum the right way. Or you're not doing
or set the dishes in the dishwasher the right way.
It's not about criticizing, it's not about, I think it's really important that as partners and people, just even in friendships, right? It doesn't matter, in relationships in general, that we really understand that when I care for you and I love you, that I'm coming from a place of help and support, and I'm not coming from a place of critique. And a place of critique also comes from a place in our wound, right? Where,
of course.
And I think that also creates friction and conflict. So being able to recognize that, I think, in each other is really important.
It's critical. Yeah. And there's a good language tool here. Like if you're trying to work with a circumstance, when you're talking to somebody else, you can say, hey, when you do this, it makes me have an experience of blank. And by separating out your experience from their thing, because usually what we do is we go, oh, you're doing this and it's hurting me. And then you assume it's their intention. But it's not usually the intention to cause pain. It's just how a person's expressing. So when we go, when you express this way, I have an experience of this, this, and this, it separates out the messiness, like the confusion about what's going on, and allows us to open up what's actually true. So that would be just a tool. And there's a lot of different tools. There's like all these different spots you can use these, but that's a good one.
That's a really good one. That's my experience. I love that.
Yeah. Well, it allows us to own
internalizing that one.
Yeah.
I'm taking that one.
We're going to steal that one.
You should. It's classic. And the thing is, what it does is it gives us power over our own experience. And so, look, the world's going to world. People are going to people. And we can't change what they do, but what we can change is how we respond to it. When this and this happens, I have an experience of that and this. Okay, well, that means two things. One, I can either let them know that I need something to change, or I can boundary it and move on and just not deal with that energy at all. A lot of people are too porous. They just need more boundaries because they're taking in too much from the world and it's causing emotional distress. So boundaries or adjustments of the circumstance is what inevitably happens when we take responsibility. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Regine, you said something interesting, criticizing or sounding critical.
Yes.
And I find not only in my own beautiful little life, also people I work with, that when and this is it's happened multiple times. It's like a pattern that I'm seeing when women feel that, with the women I've worked with and myself, I'm just going to put it that way.
Yeah.
We're not being heard, or there's some lack of understanding of what's going on. We start nitpicking and micromanaging and nitpicking the behavior and kind of trying to shape the outcome of what the other person is doing in this weird passive aggressive way.
Yeah.
And I find myself doing that too. And I have to catch myself and say, okay, what is happening that I am being this weirdo here and nagging and sounding nitpicky? At first, it was my husband would tell me, why are you da-da-da-da-da, whatever that is, right? Yeah. So then now I'm able to catch myself and say, okay, what am I doing? Why am I feeling like I need to control everything that he does? What's happening? So again, it's that criticizing piece is interesting. When we're feeling out of control, we start to criticize and nitpick and pick apart and try to control the outcome instead of kind of just saying, hey, let's stop what's happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And the whole like irritability and nitpicking thing is just a symptom of like, I don't feel good right now. Something doesn't feel right. And it's usually that, I don't feel seen, heard, or understood, or it's that I am not expressed as my highest possibility of love or in like, yes, life. And when those things are happening, then we just get irritable. And men do it too. Men, there's like different kind of commonalities among the genders, and they're pretty stereotypical and just real. But like, yeah, anyway, nitpicking is a real thing. And it's about, feeling stuck in the box of things aren't working for me, or this doesn't feel good. And so then we get irritable, it's a whole vibe. It's all good.
Oh, boy.
It's all good. Yeah, we can work with it.
It really is.
Yeah. And it does, here's the thing, and it doesn't make you wrong. If you're irritable occasionally, great. So what? It's part of it. I'm a pain in the, I don't know if I can swear on here. I'm a pain in the ass sometimes. Like as a dude, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. And so sometimes I'm just like a, whatever, it's like, it's a certain vibe that I run through my beingness. And I'm probably a pain in the butt to deal with for my wife. And I tell her that. I'm like, sorry, babe. Sarah, I'm such a pain in the ass. She's like, it's fine. I can deal with you. You're not a problem. And then, sometimes she drives me fucking crazy and she's like, sorry. And I'm like, yeah, it's all good. I love you. I love you anyway, even if you're wild.
So, Max, I love that. I wanted to ask another question about your, we can probably wrap it up with this, is explaining people, we're hearing a lot about, masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah.
And what is being in our masculine energy versus being in our feminine energy.
Sure.
And, oftentimes the way I see it is I will be in my masculine energy. You will see it as a woman when it has nothing to do with finances or taking charge of the household or anything like that. To me, my masculine energy is my emotional vibration, my frequency, where I'm at, how I'm feeling. Am I in my masculine? Am I angry, irritated? Am I is my voice level or tone a little bit more elevated? Am I more frustrated? And that's where I kind of feel that my needs are not being met.
Yeah.
And really, from a woman to step back and say, when you are in that vibrational energy, do you like yourself in that moment? I personally don't, right? So that's what I kind of know.
Yeah,
and then I really want to be in my feminine energy, right? With whoever I'm at. And my feminine energy is gentle and caring and compassionate and loving and calm and patient, right?
Yeah.
And often people tell me a lot of times, oh my God, Regine, you're so patient. How do you do it? And then I'm like, oh gosh, well, we all have our moments. But I want you to talk a little bit to that, to the masculine and feminine energy, because men want, right, the feminine energy. They don't really want the masculine.
Well, they think they do. The thing is,
energy.
The thing about the feminine is the whole spectrum. So it can be like juicy love and yesness, but can also be like rage. Feminine is reaction to, it's responsiveness. That's about, like, feminine is, to be in the flow of life, to be in the exquisite experience of yes, like that is the feminine. And also, so is no, because that's also a response. And so is enraged. So anyway, it's funny when men are like, I want a more feminine woman. It's like, well, can you handle it? Can you handle it? That's a real question. So let me break this down. What is the masculine? What is the feminine? The masculine is about awareness. It's about structure. It's about perimeter. It's about providership. It's about really knowing, like, here's the field of play. This is where we are. This is where we're going. It's leadership. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when you're in your like strategy or like map making or aware of the future moment, like that's the masculine. Where are we? Where are we going? If we work in careers, often we're doing that. We're kind of strategizing and creating from that place. To be in the feminine would be in the moment of now as responsiveness, whatever it is. Responsiveness is the key. This tastes so good. I love the feeling of that wind on my skin. I don't like the temperature out. Like, that is responsiveness. So to be in feminine would be in relationship to the felt reality of now. It's less, I'm aware that I don't like the experience, and it's more, I don't like it. It's about like being in the actual feeling space. And so, positive masculinity would be awareness and leadership from a place of co-creation. Toxic masculinity would be tyrannical and authoritative leadership without co-creation. Positive feminine would be bringing an experience into we can, into aliveness, into good experiences. Toxic femininity would be, abusive rage, like where emotions are abusive, like that's the toxic feminine. And so when we talk about these things, what is masculinity and what's femininity? There's the positive, there's the healthy, and then there's the toxic. And so, and they're all part of it. Does that make sense? And so that's, for the common person that's trying to figure out what does it mean to be in your masculine, it's sort of like sitting on top of a mountain, looking across the horizon going, this is the earth, right? It's the awareness of all that is. Here's the earth. Here's what I have control over. And being in your feminine would be in a stream on the side of that mountain going, oh, this water feels so good. Like, that's the feminine. That makes sense.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, and that's and it's that's how it is for life.
I totally was there.
Yeah. Were you actually on a mountain, like within the past?
Yeah, I was. I did both. I was the mountain man, and I was the river woman too. So.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's good. Here's the thing too: is that every individual has a masculine and feminine capacity, and most people are in the center and confused and unexpressed completely. And so, when we work with anyone to heal, we start to bring them out into their capacities. And, most people will arrive kind of in their orientation. Like, by and large, I would say like 8 out of 10 people that are men feel good in spaciousness. 8 out of 10 women feel good in love and flow. And, but then there are people that are, women that are very masculine, and that's fine. Like, there are going to be flipped circumstances, and there's nothing wrong with it. But learning the truth of our constitution is important, and then learning how to expand into our capacity. And, I've been working with men for a decade, and a lot of what I'm teaching is how do we actually take on this experience of embodied leadership? What does it mean to feel like I've got a house? For me, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm holding this house, I'm protecting this house. I live in a dicey city. It's pretty difficult. How do I hold and create security and safety in my family? And beyond that, what is the legacy I'm creating for my kids? What is my long vision? I got 2 young kids, and I want to put them through college. So how do I build so that I can, do that? I want to retire my wife at some point. I want to, buy a house in the mountains at some point. How do I create that kind of life? In the meantime, my wife wants to travel. I want to travel too, but I'm just I'm a very business and creation oriented guy. So I can hunker down for a couple of years and forget that life is existing, where my wife's like, I want to play, I want to travel. So I'm like, okay, so how do we do both? How do I go hard on my life? And how do I feed her desires? Back to the beginning of this conversation. That's what my role as a man is. I'm here to serve. I'm here to create. I'm here to do powerfully on behalf of, and I'm going to enjoy it while I do it.
Oh, I love that.
That's so beautiful.
And you just said something. I heard another thing about the whole, these are just common words that we're hearing a lot now, especially social media, is that I am here to serve.
Oh, yeah.
What does that mean as a man? I'm here to serve. Yeah,
that is the evolution of a man from prince to king. That is the evolution of man from selfish to wide. We have a crisis of men right now where they're basically all in their 30s and young 40s, and they're still in there I just want to do life for me. I want to have great experiences. And all these women are where are the good men? It's they're stuck in prince. They're still just doing me, me, me. A lot of women are doing this too. And what's happening is they're not moving toward what it actually means to evolve as a human being. I teach this thing called the initiatory path of man. And basically, when you go back 100,000 years, there were these initiations. One of them was from childhood to young adulthood. And then the next one was young adulthood to real adulthood. And then there's the third, which is adulthood to elderhood or eldership. And we're missing those initiations. And when we don't have those initiations, it means we end up with 45-year-old guys that are still just super self-oriented. And it's me, me, me. And, everyone's doing things like plant medicine and trips to Bali over and over again because they need experiences to fill the thing that would be filled if they actually served. If you serve your family, that's where fulfillment comes from. Yes. If I serve my wife, that's where fulfillment comes from. If I serve my community, that's where fulfillment comes from. When people don't serve, they're just constantly hungry for their own, how do I feed my lack of, it's a void. It's a hole in the heart, really, when we don't mature.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I know we're kind of wrapping up on time, but a lot of the stuff, Max, you're talking about, and even for me and Anahit, and we really connect on these things. And a lot of things we talk about is just in relationships in general is having, clear communication, right?
Totally.
Consistency. Really important. And even as leaders, as you're leading also a company or your business, right? So clear communication, consistency, I'm not shifting, even if I am in a relationship and it's stable, from the talking stage to being in the relationship to actually being married, is that we have that consistency, that we're feeding each other, we're growing together. We are feeding each other's souls, so to speak, right? I'm not forgetting you but I'm expressing to you if I'm tired, etc.
Yeah, totally.
And then the other thing you talked about is respect. Respect is really important. And then lastly is being a man of your word and being a woman of your word. If I say I'm going to do something and I'm going to show up, I'm going to show up for you. And if I can't show up, I'm going to let you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that if we have all this, relationships can thrive, even if they work or they don't work out, right? Because at the end, it's who am I as a human? Who do I really value myself? And what am I going to put myself in the path of, right?
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
Really love all this. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, we're going to need another session with Max Trombly.
Just reach out. I'm happy to do it again. Here's the thing, what it really comes down to is that there's a call right now for people to really get more mature, to really understand what are you here to create in the world. And we can't keep doing this thing where it's our relationships aren't working. The men that I choose aren't the right men. Let's go to self-responsibility and go, well, what do you need from a man? And how do you know when you're dating that you can see that or find that? And then the other thing is, if we commit to loving each other, the speed that we go from loving each other to going, my needs aren't being met and now I hate my partner, is just far too immature and fast. We need to just commit to what do I need to do to become he who can serve a relationship. This is what I teach men in. And, I have these immersions where I'm bringing men together and I'm basically saying, like, this is what the feminine needs from us. This is how you serve the feminine. It's not as hard as you think. Everyone thinks that women are a burden. And it's like, well, what if you just became masterful? One really masterful move a day is going to keep a woman really lit up to be in love with you. It's not like you have to do it 24/7, but men just have this like burden thing, and women just have this thing about like, how do I inspire my man into like depth? And it's like, well, we have to inspire them into depth. So what I'm trying to finish this by saying is self-responsibility. When we take self-responsibility over the conditions of our life, a lot can change. When we don't do that, we end up being victims to the lives that are occurring. And then, it ends up being pretty regretful after a period of time.
Anyway. And I just wanted to add one quick random little thing, but it's really important. I feel like I have to say it energetically. It came to me, so I'm going to say it. Yeah. Anything fear-based is not going to work. So it's men are afraid because they don't know how to show up. So they're afraid to even try.
That's right.
And women too. So I think we have to remember that it's okay to do the brave thing. It's okay to be the first one to try in a relationship and just bring it all together and just go out on a limb because it's worth it.
Yeah, totally.
So Max, where can we find you? Can you let our listeners know and
absolutely.
They can connect with you?
Yeah, well, my name is Max Trombly. It's Trombly. And you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of the main transmission of my work online. I have a website, ashiftinbeing.com. And you can find me at the Whole Foods in New Orleans, Louisiana, like twice a day, every single day. Really, that's like where I'm like, I'm either that or in carpool. But no, don't find me in Whole Foods. Let that be my safe space where I don't have to think about work. But anyway, realistically, I'm online. I'm easy to find. I'm on a million podcasts, and I'm on just my own thing on Instagram. So do reach out and follow me. I have a community that I'm launching in a couple weeks. It's an online community, really low bar for entry financially. So people can just kind of jump in, ask questions, and I'll do like group coaching so that people can kind of hear, how do we evolve as human beings? That's really what I'm here for. How can we do better as humans? And how can we get what we want while we're doing it? That's the thing, is like, I've figured out not only how to succeed in life, but how to have a great time while succeeding. The intimacy I have in my relationship is just the top notch, and like the love we have and the way I feel about being a dad, like I'm on fire with it. And it doesn't mean I don't have hardship, but I get to look at my life and go, yeah, I'm crushing it. And it is good.
That's because you're manifesting that energy every day. You're feeling it and you're creating it. And that
is it. I'm creating it. That's the thing. Even if I wake up and I'm like, oh, my back hurts. How do I get to, okay, I feel good. I'm here. Right. What do we need? It's about pivoting out of the like things aren't working and pivoting toward like we can. So if your listeners are interested, find me. I'm here. I'm around, and I'll be around. And I'm happy to do another session. If you guys want to do another one, just reach out and we'll do it.
Oh, it's going to be needed.
Yes. Thank you so much, Max.
Thank you, Max.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a wrap for another episode, and we will see you next time.